it's Rob back for 180drums.com, and today we're going to be talking about stickings to create polyrhythms and implied time metric modulation. My hope is that we're going to break this down simple enough that just about anybody can play it, and we're going to use two very simple stickings, and the first one is a right-left-left three-note sticking. The second is a right-left bass drum linear sticking. Both of these stickings were found in my last article, so if you haven't checked that out, be sure to go back and check that out. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to break down one of the most common polyrhythms, which is 4 against 3. And I'm going to do this in two ways. We're going to first use what I call the short version, which is what I played at the intro of this video, and then we're going to do the long version. 4 against 3 will take 3 bars to come back around to resolve to 1 when we use a 3-beat sticking. But what I like to do, just to learn it so that you kind of get a sense of what it sounds like, is I like to just basically cut it off by 1 beat. So it will also resolve in 3 beats. So if we put a sextuplet at the end, we can continue to use our 3-note grouping. So basically, here's the most basic pattern with the 4 against 3 polyrhythm, sextuplet on the end. I'm just going to use the 3-note sticking, which is right, left, left. I'm going to play it on the snare drum. And then as a linear. Now you should get comfortable moving this around the drum kit just like anything else. You can also move the sextuplets from the last beat to the first beat to basically the end of 2 and 3, and all the notation is in the article. Once you're comfortable playing it around the drum set, I really suggest that you put the right hand notes up on a ride cymbal bell or on a cowbell, just so you can get a sense of how strong that 4 against 3 polyrhythm is and how it sounds against time, especially as you're moving the sextuplets to different parts of the measure. You can hear how the polyrhythm sounds starting in different places within the measure. Now, the second way that I like to do this is what I call the long version. So this is the actual polyrhythm where it will take a full 3 bars to resolve back to 1. Let's first play that on the snare drum to see how it sounds. Again, I'm just going to use the right, left, left sticking. I'm going to keep quarter notes on the hi-hat. Here it is. Now I'm going to put it on the ride cymbal bell with just a small rim click on the snare drum so you can really hear the polyrhythm against the quarter note pulse. Here it is. These are interesting because they can add a lot of tension to the music. And if all that you're doing is playing it on a ride cymbal bell, it doesn't cause a lot of tension for the other musicians that you're playing with. The chances of throwing them off is a lot less likely. I'm going to now set this up with a bass drum on 1 and 3, snare drum on 2 and 4. So basically playing 4 underneath our polyrhythm here on the ride cymbal. So let's see what that sounds like. An interesting thing we can do with this is actually double up the amount of notes that we're playing on the ride cymbal. And this is going to start to give it a totally different feel, and it will mask a little bit that you're playing a polyrhythm, but it sounds really cool. Same thing, 1 and 3 on the bass drum, 2 and 4 on the snare drum. Again, all the notations in the article, make sure you go back and actually look at how all the notes line up. That's really important. Also, practicing this stuff with a metronome is vitally important because you definitely want to make sure that you're right locked in with the pulse. The last thing I want to look at here is what's called implied time or metric modulation. What that means is that nothing is really going to change other than the way I'm phrasing what I'm playing. And I'm going to make it sound like it's a totally different pulse happening. In fact, it's going to sound like it's about 1.5 times faster than the original pulse. Now, this stuff you need to be really careful with because you can definitely send the other musicians into a tailspin if they don't know what's going on. So make sure that you converse with your guitar player and your bass player before you start trying to rip this stuff off at band practice and especially on stage. So for this, all that we're going to do is we're going to take that basic ride cymbal pattern, and instead of playing 1 and 3 on the bass drum, 2 and 4 on the snare drum, I'm going to alternate the ride cymbal hits with a bass drum and a snare drum. So essentially, those ride cymbal notes now become our new quarter note. Just again, make sure that you're playing with a click track so you don't get lost or get eluded into thinking that is the new quarter note. So I'm going to play a couple of bars of just straight time. Again, quarters on the hi-hat, and then I'm going to go into this metric modulation. So as you can see, this stuff can start to sound really, really cool. The last thing I want to look at, and this is probably the coolest rhythm, definitely a click track with this one. This one sounds really neat because there's an absolute rhythmic illusion that goes on here. We're going to use that doubled up ride cymbal pattern. So you're not only going to have a metric modulation, but also a rhythmic illusion because it's going to start to sound like you're playing a shuffle pattern at 1.5 times faster, though you're actually not. Again, I'm going to set it up with some just straight ahead time, and then I'm going to move into the metric modulation. Alright guys, that's everything for today. Don't forget, check out www.rhythmicvocabulary.com, at facebook.com/rhythmic vocabulary. Until next time, talk to you soon.